Welcome to World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss, the podcast for busy professionals who want to plan unforgettable trips without the stress. If you're craving adventure, relaxation, or cultural immersion, but feel overwhelmed where to start, this is the show for you. Each week, we dive into travel tips, expert strategies, and actionable advice to help you save time, money, and hassle while helping you design your dream trip. From group getaways to romantic escapes to adventure packed journeys and budget friendly tips, we cover it all. I'm Ross, your host and travel enthusiast, with over a decade of experience balancing a demanding career while also planning trips to over 25 cities in Europe, all over the US, Central America, the Caribbean, and beyond. I've mastered the art of stress free planning, and I'm here to help you do the same. If you love what you hear, don't forget to follow the show, leave us a review, as well as share it with a fellow traveler. I want to make your next adventure the easiest and most memorable yet. Now, on with the show. Welcome back to another episode of World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss. I'm your host, Ross, and I'm excited to have Casey Chohan on today, where we're going to dive into all things tax saving strategies and how to leverage those for travel. And I know it's the beginning of 2025, and with tax season coming up, everyone's probably waiting till that April 15th date. So he's going to give you some insights into why you shouldn't and how to map out your travel at 2025. What's going on, Casey?
Hey, thanks for having me, Ross. Excited to be on and start the new year right.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. And would love to just learn a little bit more about your background and what can listeners expect to learn from you. I don't want to sell you short for my intro.
Yeah, so tax savings is pretty much it. And most people, over 90% of people, are overpaying on their taxes every single year. And you can put some really simple fixes in there just to get some more of that money back and stop overpaying the government so that you can enjoy yourself and travel more and get some more experiences and memories created along the way.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to learn about that. I've dove into, having some real estate properties, dove into a lot of nerding out on that stuff. Probably more than most people who own that do, just to figure out how to save on taxes from a W-2 from a small business owner standpoint. But when you're working with clients, like who do you mainly serve?
It's normally more high net worth people, multi seven, eight figure business owners, all the way up to family offices. These guys are looking for more strategic, bigger tax savings. But that being said, there's so many loopholes and so many strategies that we start off as a foundation and then work into those big structures because you can save a lot of money on the small stuff as well. But if you're making tens of millions of dollars, you also need more advanced strategies as well. So going to be something for everyone today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be curious just for people who might be starting out or might be earlier in their career and whatnot. Like, what are some of those foundational strategies to get started with? If you don't mind naming a couple.
So from the travel perspective is making sure that everything you do is business related because if we can tie that expense or event to the business, then it can be a legitimate expenditure of the business and you can get up to a full tax write-off for that. So whether that's going away on a trip to explore buying new real estate, let's just say in Wyoming or wherever you want to buy it, then if that's done in the right way, that full trip can be expensed and written off, and more importantly, tax deductible for you, whether that's as a W-2, an individual, business owner, you just got to do it in the right way in order to receive those write-offs. And then there's a whole host of other write-offs. We actually have a community where we give away the top 50 tax loopholes that everybody should be using, and you can download that for free. We'll put the link below, so we'll give your listeners something to read.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always helpful to have those type of free resources just to be able to get started because I think people there's a lot of really good information out there online and now with social media I feel like you're getting targeted with what you look at. So being able to have that step-by-step checklist to walk people through I think is really important. So yeah, to the audience, I'll make sure to share that with you.
And it can get actually really easy. What we recommend for people to do just to make life easy and efficient is to download the list and email it to their CPAs. because that way you don't have to do anything. You're issuing an instruction to someone who's supposedly working for your best interests, and you can say, hey, here's a checklist of 50 loopholes. How many of them are we using? And then how many do we actually qualify for? Because, as an example, there's a few of them on there that related to kids. But if you don't have any kids, you don't quite qualify for that just yet. So, of the 50, how many do apply to us? And then how many are we using? And you can use that as a gauge as to how proactive your CPA or tax professional is for you, rather than just assuming that they're doing everything that they can.
Yeah, no, I think that's the biggest thing is not just handing it over and say, "Hey, can you file?" It's really figuring out, right? Being proactive and then saying, "Can we do this here?" Right? If I'll just give you a prime example, like from a real estate perspective, being a W-2 employee, figuring out, okay, can we do a cost segregation study for some of these different properties? What does that look like? Because when you hear about bonus depreciation and how investors are, bringing up those taxes X amount of time, just figuring that out, and then you're like, oh, I want to do that, but figuring out how do you qualify for real estate professional status, things like that. We could go down a whole rabbit hole, but those are some personal things that I've looked into, and just like getting married, I think that's another thing that I have upcoming personally. So it's like figuring out those types of things, being proactive, dual income, everything. It's definitely helpful to stay on top of that.
100%. And the reality of the matter is that what most people will find is the CPAs are not really proactive. They don't really care because when you look at their job scope and what they're actually getting paid to do, they're not getting paid to save you money on taxes. That's what a tax strategist will do. A CPA is getting paid to prepare and file your return, and he gets or she gets paid based on you filing it and paying the government. So they are really working for the government more than they are working for you. If they were incentivized and made more money based on how much they saved you, then I would argue they actually work for you.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But I want to make sure that we're since we focus a lot on travel, understand just from your perspective, like what are maybe some of the biggest unknowns? I know you talk about saving money when you do, you know, whenever you're traveling, figuring out how do you use that as an expense, but maybe what are some strategies that you've used for clients that they didn't even know about when they first started traveling?
So the key one is private foundation. This is an advanced structure used by the elites all the way up to family offices, billionaires. They all have multiple non-profit private family foundations. And the gist of it is whether you're a W-2, this applies to you also. So you can be a W-2, have a foundation, do your charitable work. And the retreats for that foundation, the board meetings can be monthly, quarterly, annually, and they are fully covered by the foundation. So it's one way you can make a charitable donation from your W-2 salary and get the full tax deduction for it, up to 30% of your salary. And then on the other side, you can do charitable work, which is obviously what it's intended for. But a consequence of that is if that charitable work just so happens to be in Hawaii, in Europe, in Australia, wherever that is around the world, you want to make an impact, that trip can be fully tax deductible.
Okay. Okay, I'm following. So if you did a charitable trip, let's just say 2 weeks to, I don't know, Costa Rica, and like how is there a specific amount of time that would be volunteering work, a specific amount of time that would be leisurely? I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly and listeners are as well.
Yeah, so it goes to the purpose of the trip. So let's just say the trip to Costa Rica was to help rebuild a school. So now your charitable purpose and the mission is to go to Costa Rica to rebuild the school. Now, obviously, you're not going to be rebuilding the school 24/7 for the 2 weeks that you're there, right?
Hmm.
And you're going to eat some food, and you're probably going to have a day or two of rest and leisure and looking around. But as long as you have an itinerary and you know what it is you're going for, the primary purpose of that mission is to rebuild a school or potentially look to donate to other charities to help rebuild schools. It doesn't have to be the actual physical labor. then you can write that trip off because you're building relationships and you're doing community good. So that full trip, the flights, the hotel, the food, all of that for the delegation that is going there for the foundation can be written off.
Okay. Interesting. All right. I was not aware of that. So that's that's definitely a good strategy. I'll definitely have to, I think I have to put that in my tool belt.
100%. Now, you can take this to the extremes and you can then say that maybe the foundation owns a private jet and they use the jet to get there, or a yacht and they use the yacht to get there. You can definitely see how billionaires and the elite families use these tools because they have them readily available. Use Davos as a prime example, where all these elite billionaires fly into Switzerland once a year and have this meeting, non-profit meeting, of course. So all of the jets that fly, not all, the vast majority of jets that are flying in there are used as write-offs, either for LLCs owned by foundations or what have you, because the purpose of that mission of the Davos community is world good, right? So
Hmm.
apparently, anyway, apparently.
Yeah.
Um, but the the key here is we have a clear agenda of what we're going to do. So day one, we're going to go meet with this person. Day two, we're going to go to the site. Day three, we're going to do this. And that's all written out, clearly stated in your documents. Now, again, the agenda, it could be written out. It doesn't mean it has to go according to plan to the minute, right? These things change, things happen. But generally speaking, as long as you have a clear agenda and you're following the mission of the foundation, then you can write that off.
Okay. I'm following. Um, okay. Yeah. What if, let's say hypothetically someone was wanting to start a retreat for their digital online community and to get together maybe once a year and let's just say Mexico since that's close to the US.
Yeah,
Would it
happens very frequently. So
okay.
sorry, go finish the
Oh yeah,
scenario.
I figured that was the case, but I think it's like, when you is that something then when you're doing some of the work, say like I was planning it, I was doing most of the work, right? How do you then, I guess, for your labor, are you able to charge for that? And then also, right? No, okay, so it would,
Yeah, the labor is a tricky one, right? We get this question all the time because you have a lot of lawyers and consultants that have a
mhm,
very high hourly rate,
yeah.
and they would love to say, "Hey, I did 10 hours and my hourly rate is $1,000 an hour and I want a $10,000 deduction." It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Not for time. But if you're buying stuff, so let's say you're hosting a charitable event in Mexico and you're buying a projector or a laptop or equipment to host that event, then that's all deductible.
Okay, okay, that that makes sense. And then something I hear is, the government wants businesses to spend more money. And, if you're, say, your revenue is, let's just say, $100,000 for round numbers, right? And you want to spend, if you're not spending any money, that's not as tax friendly. Can you kind of walk through why maybe that is of sometimes them wanting you to spend more money? Maybe it's on advertising, maybe it's on, uh, you know, online, expenses, things like that.
Well, it's the way the economy works, right? Is that people make money, they spend money, it pumps into the economy, makes the rich richer, and everything that goes with that. Now, if you, let's just use a scenario, you make $100,000 and you keep it all and you don't have any expenses, then you're going to be taxed an extraordinary amount of that.
Hmm.
The beauty about having a business, whether you're a W-2 employee or not, is that you get these additional write-offs that you wouldn't have otherwise. If you're in the system and you're a W-2 employee, there's so little flexibility for write-offs to reduce that tax burden, regardless of if you're traveling or not, right? Just
Hmm.
generally speaking. The best way to reduce that down is through a private foundation because you can donate 30% of your income tax free to the foundation. So in this scenario, you can donate $30,000 into the foundation. So now your taxable income goes from 100 down to 70,000. And the beauty is the 30,000 goes from this hand to this hand, and you can then do trips and travel and things like that, and further your mission through the foundation and use that 30,000 towards that. Whereas, let's say you're taxed at in California, a very high rate. Let's just use 50% for easy math.
Yeah.
Now, the tax bill on the 100,000 would be 50,000, right? At 50%. But on the 70,000, it's now only 35,000 that you'd pay in taxes. So instantly, with that one move, you've saved $15,000 a year on tax.
Hmm.
But you've also got the 30,000 that you can then reuse for travel, charitable purposes, and things of that nature. So you've increased your wealth
Yeah.
actually by the 30 plus the 15, so 45,000.
Okay, I'm tracking. And just to make sure, I'm tracking and then my audience is as well. So with that, so we're talking about right moving that over to the foundation. So that 30,000 is that, just to clarify, that can then be used for personal travel, or that has to be used for business travel like we were talking about if you were doing the Costa Rica example where you were going down and you were maybe doing, right, some charitable work.
Yeah, so the 30,000 would always be used to do for activities to do with the foundation.
Okay. Okay.
So if you wanted to go to Texas to go see your mom, you can't do that with the foundation money. But if there just so happens to be an event in Texas that you want to attend because it might better your foundation or it might help you learn something for your foundation, then you can do that. That makes perfect sense. So as long as there's a reason, there's a backup for the travel commitment, and it could be as simple as you're looking to potentially donate some money to a cause in Texas or two or three causes and you want to whittle it down to the one that you really want. So you're going to go out there, you're going to meet two or three different charities to finally meet them, shake their hands, look them in the eyes and decide which one gets your donation. You can do that as an expedition and kind of write that off as a which you don't have to make the donation there and then, but it's justified because it's all to do with charity. It's not just you going to see your mom, it's
Yeah.
you going to see a church, go to see a school, go to see a synagogue, whatever it is that you're affiliated to or your mission and purpose of the foundation is. Um, or it could be to buy some real estate, as an example. If your mission is to help sustainable living or first time buyers. The missions could
Yeah.
be unlimited, right? So the purposes could also be unlimited. So there's a there's a lot that can be done within the foundations like that.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that. I just want to make sure for me, I was 95% sure, but I want to make sure the audience wasn't like, oh, I can go travel to Texas to visit my mom with that extra 30 grand that I just saved on taxes.
I'm sure there's a way to do that, but you just have to do it in the right way.
Yes.
It's don't just you can't just take the money personally and go to Vegas and put it
Yeah.
all on red. That's not a good use of foundation money, and your tax exemption will get revoked pretty quickly. But if there's a convention in Vegas that's about nonprofits or it's
Hmm.
about something that your mission is, then yeah, 100%, that's all covered. You can go to Vegas and go attend and buy the ticket and learn about it because that is directly related to your foundation.
Okay. Okay. I'm tracking. I, for me, I selfishly want to know, just like for people who own travel businesses, do you have any clients where you have specific examples of how they've done it, maybe overseas, things like that?
Yeah, just exactly how I
Okay.
mentioned it is that it's one of our clients went to the Vatican because he wanted to make a donation, and that trip is fully covered because he's donating to the church and he gets a beautiful tour of the Vatican
Yep.
while he's doing it. And it just so happens to be in Rome as well. So, there's a lot of benefits to doing that. But again, the purpose isn't the travel trip. The purpose is, hey, we want to build relationships with the Vatican or whatever affiliation you have, there's no
Yeah.
right or wrong here. The key underlying principle is that it's in line with your mission and purpose.
Yep.
And then the next question is, what is your mission and purpose?
Yeah.
And that could be anything that you want it to be.
Okay. Okay. No, that's helpful. I'm tracking and
And
that
then
that makes
how
sense.
frequently can you do this?
Yeah.
Monthly, if some boards meet monthly, some boards meet virtually, some mandatory in person, quarterly, annually. It's totally up to you. Whoever is the chairman of the board can decide on the frequency and locations of the meetings.
Okay. Okay. And what if, I mean, what if you are, two-person company? Would that be just the owner or the people who are part of the operating agreement?
It could be whoever is listed as mandatory attendees, because you might have secretaries, you might have different skill sets within that need to be there, that need to listen in on certain things. So it's whoever is needed for a business use.
Okay. Gotcha. All right, that makes sense. This is really helpful. I think people are probably going to be a little mind blown. I mean, I know I definitely am learning a bunch. So, really really helpful. What about, I mean, credit cards? So I think I want to dive into that a little bit just because for me that's, I started traveling as a busy professional for a W-2 job, healthcare, medical device sales, and then personally travel a bunch. And how we save a lot of money is through points and miles through different credit cards. Using those transfer bonuses, right? Being able to fly business class, just saving a bunch of money by, knowing a lot of that stuff. I guess how can some people strategically use credit cards to offset some of those trips?
Well, it's about knowing your numbers firstly, right? I think it all boils down to what are your numbers? How much do you spend a month? And like you said, there's no real magic sauce here. It's, hey, accumulate as many smart points as you can without overspending. I think that's a big thing most people misunderstand. They just go crazy on a new credit card, and it's like, no, no. If you're already spending $10,000 a month, well, maybe spend it on an Amex Platinum where you get 5x the points, or a Chase Sapphire where you get 4 or 5x. And then when you're buying a ticket, look at it in points only. Don't go to cash. It's the worst
Hmm.
thing you could do. Look at the airline it's with, look at the points, and then there's even people where you can convert points. So let's say you're on an Amex point, but it doesn't have Air Alaska as one of its affiliates. There's places you can go that can convert those points from Amex into point B so that you can then use it on Alaska Air and get
Yeah.
this business class ticket for 50,000 points as opposed to paying $5,000 for it. So it's, yes, it's a few extra hurdles to jump, but when you're not paying $5,000 for a business class flight and when you already have the points over here, and then the person on the flight sitting next to you did pay 5,000, you'll be like, I feel pretty good now.
Yeah.
So it's well worth it if you have the flexibility on dates, if you
Hmm.
can have the time to actually do that, because you can't do that if you need to book it today or book it tomorrow. It probably takes a couple of days to transfer from Amex to point B into said airline. It's not something that's going to happen instantaneously. Now, there are brokers that do that as well. Not many people know that, but there's corporate brokers that will take your points from, let's just say, Amex, and they will issue you X amount of points, depending on the value, depending on what you want, in whatever airline you want. So they kind of become the points bank, and they'll dish you out points in whichever frequent flyer mile or hotel group that you want. And I think that's a really smart way to travel.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's how we've been traveling over the past couple years. We definitely got in using different credit cards, maximizing those, and this Chase Sapphire Reserve is definitely my favorite. And then some of the Business Unlimiteds, and I know some of the Amex, or I have friends who use those from a business standpoint. And yeah, being able to just transfer those over when there's different bonus offers which come out, and there's a lot of different when you talk about brokers. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of companies that just solely focus on that, where they have different. There's an app that I use, a couple apps. Travel Freely, which for people getting started just houses all your credit cards in one thing, so you can track those. And then Award Wallet also gives you an idea of like, here's how many points I have. That's when these expire. So different areas like that and different tools. There's definitely companies that can help with that if you find that that's way too overwhelming when you have different credit cards. But yeah, being able to, because yeah, there's so many different transfer partners, and I think one thing that I fell accustomed to and was a mistake earlier on my career, which I'm glad I made because I at least got me in the rhythm of becoming part of different airline and hotel alliances. Was if you have the credit card or you're only going to get a couple nights like at Marriott or Hilton if you travel like 75 nights a year. That's the only way to get status. There's definitely ways that you can stay at nice places. Hyatt's my favorite just because you can use Chase Ultimate Rewards points and transfer those over, and get stays for 15, 20,000 points at amazing places. Like we're staying in places in Bali in a couple months for our honeymoon, on that, and then flying Qatar Q Suites business back and forth to Bangkok and Bali both ways on the lie down flat seats using points. So yeah, it's definitely an area that's
That's
fun to get
what's up.
into.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is. But when you look at it, you're like, wow, we just saved 20, 25 grand on our honeymoon just by strategically mapping those out. Like you said, keeping it simple, understanding your finances, but doing that little extra research in some of those steps. And once you do it once, you kind of know, oh, this, One World is part of Finnair, Aer Lingus, right? Iberia, British Airways, Qatar, and you can house those all in one and transfer them over.
100%. I think you work backwards, right? I did my honeymoon in Bali.
Oh,
I wish
nice.
I knew all of this stuff then, but it's work it back. So, okay, I want to go to Bali. All right, how do I get to Bali? Which airlines and which destinations do I have to stop over in to get there? So for us, we went via Taipei and we had a quick stop off there. So we went with a Thai airline and we had again the flatbeds and everything. But if you know you're going to do that, then maybe factor in a couple of days extra in that destination and you get a free trip. Whereas if you were going to add an extra location in, you would have to again pay more. So you can strategically travel. And if you know there's no direct flights to Bali from
Yeah.
LA, so you know you're going to have to stop off somewhere. So you can go Taipei, Japan, China. There's a few different ways to get there. So pick which of those connecting cities are most attractive because they're all linked to different airlines, usually the nation that you're flying into's airline. And then if you book directly, they actually allow you to fly in one day and fly out a couple of days extra for no extra charge a lot of the time.
Yeah, I just learned that recently from a couple other podcasts. I wish we had that. It's easy from Charlotte to get to Europe, but to get to, Japan, Australia, places like that's a little bit tougher than on the West Coast.
Yeah, it's a big country we've got here in America. It's literally like the size of Europe, so it's you're on the other side of it, unfortunately. But there's a lot of good places to go to in Europe that's not too far for you.
Yeah, yeah, we've been to a bunch over the years, which has been fun. We just got back from Greece in September, which that was amazing. Of course, we got the day we flew out, they announced that there's a direct flight to Athens from Charlotte, and we had a layover, which
Look at the draw, right? Next
yeah,
time.
yeah, next time. But where, I guess for you guys, like where have you been where you've leveraged some of these strategies, whether it's just credit cards, whether it's foundation, kind of just so the audience can understand, like, hey, this isn't just us talking. This is possible.
Yeah, so for me, I'm English, obviously. So I go back to England once a year at least, and we have a foundation retreat there. We do a lot of charity work there as well. Just in my hometown, my home school is also a non-profit, so I donate to them. So, there's a lot of things that you realize are actually non-profits that you can donate to or go visit and have the intent to potentially donate to as well. So the key here is the word potential. It doesn't mean you have to do a donation. It's just that you're going to explore to see if their values align with your values. And if so, maybe you do a donation or maybe not. There's a lot of schools, a lot of charities, a lot of religious organizations. There's corporations that you never would think would be nonprofits, like the NFL, like Rolex, like just loads of different companies that you could go to the headquarters in Switzerland and walk around and say, "Hey, I'm interested in donating. Let me take a look. I'm very passionate about watchmaking and the history of watches." And go walk around Geneva for the day or weekend or whatever, right? So there's a lot of things that mainly the stuff I do is in America and in England, just because that's my background.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. And is there, when you're donating, like, for example, I'll just use Rolex and NFL, are there minimum thresholds that some of these, okay.
There's no minimums because everything here is all philanthropy. So you can donate as little as a buck. No one would, but
Yeah.
100 bucks, 1,000 bucks is
Yeah.
perfectly fine. It doesn't have to be millions or tens of millions of dollars. Like a lot of people have this preconceived notion in their head that, oh, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is donating this much money. Well, what they're not telling you is they're donating that to control that enterprise completely. It's different reasons, and at that level, it's completely different to people that are using this on a day-to-day smaller basis.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen to this because this is really this has been really helpful and download the checklist. I think that's step one is the 50 checklist and sharing that with our audience. I guess travel wise, I mean, where are some other really I'm always just curious when I'm meeting different people. Where are some of your favorite, I guess, top three places you've been just around the world?
Around the world. Well, Bali, my honeymoon was phenomenal. We stayed at the Ritz. It was unbelievable. Thailand, I had a great time. I didn't just do Thailand. I did like a little tour. We did Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. It was unbelievable in Malaysia as well. So I did that twice actually, learned to scuba dive and
Oh,
loads of cool
nice.
stuff while I was out there. So definitely that part of the world is phenomenal. The food is great. People are fantastic. The culture is great. There's just filled with a lot of love in that part of the world. So definitely love that. I grew up in England, so I was visiting Europe a lot as a child throughout. So fortunate enough to ski in the Alps
I'm jealous.
and Switzerland and Austria and summer in Ibiza. So a lot of great, like again, that was very normal for
Yeah.
us in Europe because everything's so close and Oktoberfest in Germany. There's so many cool things to do in Europe, and the fact that everything's an hour or two away makes it really, really easy. It's like jumping from state to state would be the equivalent here. Um, but you get such variety when you can be up in the mountains on the snow, and then you can be down in Capri and sipping on some nice wine and some great seafood, right? So the south of France is beautiful. It just all depends on what your personal preference is, because when I was younger, I was all about the partying, so we'd
Yeah.
go to these cool Eastern Europe was great. We had a great time in Prague and Riga and Latvia, Estonia, and then the other side, like Ibiza and the beach and, Cafe Del Mar and hitting all these clubs. But now I'm a little bit older. I've got a family, just had a kid. I don't want to do
Congrats.
any of that stuff. So now it's like the evolution of travel. And more recently, we've been going to Mexico a lot more. Obviously, we live very close to
Hmm.
Mexico. So Punta Mita in Mexico has been kind of our go-to spot. It's only a
Okay.
couple of hour flight. It's not as crazy as Cabo, but it's gorgeous. It's so relaxing. So Punta Mita is kind of my go-to spot right now in Mexico.
I've heard good things about it. My fiance is actually heading down to Cabo as we're recording this week for her bachelorette party. So I'm a little
Exactly that. And
jealous.
that's perfect. That's exactly what Cabo is for. But there's some great resorts in Cabo as well. They've got the Viceroy and some other great five-star resorts. They've really increased the standard and the quality of, hey, it's not just a big boozy
Yeah.
vacation, but you can actually have some fantastic luxury stays. And that's what you find more in Punta Mita is that it's just chill. And
Yeah.
really, when we work so hard and we don't really stop. So it's good to get away and kind of reset.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's funny. We used to go kind of how all of this started and how I started. This business was when we were in our 20s, as 20-year-old guys and trying to get over to Europe, no one wants to plan it. So I was the person who's like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm more organized, I'll plan it. And we just started doing annual Europe trips. And I think what people don't realize who haven't been over there from the States is once you get over there, like you said, it's an hour flight. So you can bounce from country to country. If you want to go to different cities, you can do that. So some of the places you mentioned, yeah, Prague. We went to Portugal. We've been to Barcelona, Madrid. Whenever we did Oktoberfest, that was actually our first place. I mean, we studied abroad in Ireland, so that was fun. That was kind of the first taste. Lots of Guinness, in Galway and Dublin. But yeah, Oktoberfest was the first day that I planned for that group, and then it kind of went from there. But yeah, now it's a little bit more chill. It's
It always it always amused me how when I was growing up in Europe, you'd meet Americans and it'd be like, "Yeah, I'm traveling through Europe for a week." We would be like astounded because it's just not the European way.
yeah,
We would go to a city for a week and really get to know the
yeah,
city, whereas most Americans don't have as much time because they
yeah,
don't get that much vacation. So within a week, they've done two or three cities, and it's literally bounce, bounce, bounce.
yeah.
By the time you get back, you're more tired than when you went.
Yeah, yeah, because you're staying up when you're that young. You realize quick Europeans stay up late and party till the sun rises, and that's. But yeah, no, we've chilled, and we try to do about 16 days, so we have a little bit more time and more flexibility. 2.5 weeks, and usually we'll do three, maybe four places, but usually now it's usually in one country, but it used to be bouncing around. But yeah, I'm excited for Bali. I've heard great things. We're doing 10 days in Thailand before, so yeah, I'm excited to.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great trip if you get time to go up to the forest as well. And Chiang Mai is one of my favorite places in Thailand. It's unbelievable. Some great memories up there. I'm sure it's changed a lot again since I was there, but the same in Bali. There's two sides of Bali. There's the forest area where you can go ATV in, and you can go to the whitewater rafting, which was fantastic because you're in the middle of like a
Yeah.
jungle. Then when you buy the beach and these beautiful resorts, and the service is just out of this world. The food is fresh and delicious.
Good. Yeah, we're doing Chiang Mai, so we're doing that for 3 days. So, and I've talked to people, and people are like who have did that were said it's their favorite part, and then there's people who didn't do it and were like, oh, I wish I did it. We're doing that. Bangkok for a night, obviously flying in there, and then bouncing down to Phuket and doing a day in the PP Islands, and then going to Bali and doing the
Yeah,
forest
we
for
did we
three
did the
days.
islands, got to go snorkeling and
Yeah.
all the rest of the reefs. And then in Chiang Mai, one of the good places is the elephant sanctuary, where you get to spend the day with the elephants, bathing them, playing with them. It's just memories like that where you don't get that everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, we're excited. We're doing both Bali, the beach. We're doing 3 days in the forest. So definitely mapping out this weekend actually what the experience is. So ATVing and whitewater rafting might have to be on the list, and then just doing the
Oh,
beach and chilling.
it was amazing. It's like because they got so many cool rice fields and they're all stacked at different levels. So when you ATV and you go down, it's crazy, but it feels like Jurassic Park. And it's like, wow, holy smokes. Because it's so like green and lush and beautiful and untouched and kind of unruined, especially compared to LA. It's just like
Yeah.
the big concrete jungle here. So it's beautiful. And then the whitewater rafting was really, it's not like an extensive 4 or 5 rapid whitewater. It's more of a chill. There's a few waterfalls,
Uh,
away you go. It's exactly what you want it to be
yeah.
when you're on a vacation.
You're not doing a
My
level
wife
five
loved it.
in Grand
Yeah.
Canyon. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it was great. So those will be some fantastic memories, and jet skis and take a boat out and stuff like that. I'm sure you have all that planned as well, but there's some beautiful waters in both Bali and in Thailand as well. So I'm sure you're going to make the most of it.
Yeah, yeah, we're very excited. One other question because this I'm a big one other area was snowboarder. I grew up skiing. Mom put me on skis when we were like four. Have done pretty much most of the big places in the US. Whistler's probably I love going up to Whistler, Canada. That's one of my favorites. But have been now teetering with the fact of going over to Europe or South America. I had a buddy who went to Italy and absolutely loved it. He said the super ski was like just out of this world. But you grew up going to some of those places. Any any top one or two that were your favorites that were your go-tos?
Yeah, for me, I'm a bit nostalgic when it comes to this. So I grew up skiing in Innsbruck in Kitzbühel in Austria. So my sister used to live there, so we had a great time because she knew all the locals and we were up and down like you wouldn't believe it. But you can't go wrong in the Alps. There's so many great spots, and you've got multiple countries as well. So whether you're on the French side, whether you're in the Swiss side, Verbier is like one of the unbelievable spots to go to. Um, or like even in the north side of Italy as well, you can still touch into them. But I think the Swiss and the Austrians probably have the better slopes. I keep away from the French if you can, but they don't really like the English speaking, especially the Americans. They don't like
Yeah.
English speaking countries very much at all. So I would say, yeah, go to Verbier in Switzerland. That's probably the best one.
Yeah, and I can't pass as looking like French, so I'll probably maybe if I put on my goggles and my helmet and mask,
Yeah,
but
they'll suss you out real quick.
well, cool. Well, Casey, I appreciate you coming on. This was really helpful, I think, just from a tax perspective, from learning just different strategies and for people getting started. I know I learned a lot, even just from a travel perspective and some of the credit card rewards. Being an expert there, it's always good to learn from other people, and great connecting with you. Always like to give my guests a shout out. And where can my listeners? Obviously, you have your PDF download you'll share. I'll share that in the show notes. But where can listeners find you online? Is there anything else you got going on that could really help?
Yeah, people are looking to save money on taxes or kind of get their books up to date. Reach out to us at togethercfo.com. That's togethercfo.com. And we actually have a tax savings calculator on the website as well, where you can plug in your numbers and within 30 seconds, you'll know how much you've overpaid. And then the next step, how to actually save that money as well. So if you're interested in saving money on taxes or sorting out your books, feel free to reach out to us. We're on all the social media platforms, Together CFO.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to share those in the show notes. And really appreciate you coming on. It was great meeting you. And for our audience, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give us a follow, share with a friend or family member that really wants to check us out so we can help grow the show. And if you think it deserves a 5-star review, give it a 5-star. If you don't, feel free to give it whatever you think it deserves. But appreciate you coming on again and looking forward to talking soon.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Yeah, you too.